I'm Hayden, and I'm the Oklahoma City Life Launch Program Manager. And so we have 2 locations. It's based out of Tulsa, and then we now have an Oklahoma City office as of about like 10 years ago. Is that correct, Alicia? Yes. So I've been here for almost a year-ish now. So started about mid-pandemic, but my background's in social work, and then got here during pandemic, and I've loved it. So
I'm Alicia Keithley. I'm in Tulsa. And so we work with Tulsa and the surrounding towns. And I've been with Life Launch for about 2 years now. Before this, I also did a lot of youth type work, like within the church that I worked with. And so this population has my heart fully. And so I love the work that we're doing at Stand in the Gap. And so I'm thankful for being here.
She's awesome at it too. So I've learned a lot from her. But yeah, so Stand in the Gap as a whole has 3 different ministry areas. It started about 23 years ago, specifically with widows, and since then has grown into women in transition, which is women coming out of incarceration, and then Life Launch. So the motto for our widow program is no widow alone, but we go into the churches for the widow program. So that's pretty much the only distinction for the programming as far as the layout is concerned. And so for the widows, we go into the churches and go format the curriculum around what the needs are for that local church. And we have a wonderful widows director named Jolita. She's fantastic. And she pretty much coaches people along the way to make sure that they're having everything that they possibly need. And then Women in Transition is specific to where our program directors go into the prisons and teach a transitional class. And then once they graduate that class, they qualify to have spiritual families on the outside. And so what that looks like is they'll get them transitional living once they come out of incarceration. And then 2 to 4 women then walk with that woman specifically through that year-long process. And so the Widows Program just lasts forever and ever. The Women in Transition and Life Launch are a year-long program, but our hope and prayer is that that is the beginning point for them rather than the ending, right? And so we're just the foundation to set healthy boundaries for them to be able to walk forward.
Life Launch is kind of the same model as our Women in Transition program. And so we find and get referred young adults ages 16 to 24. And we usually get them from like alternative schools or transitional living homes. Some are just individuals or DHS, kids that are like aging out of DHS. And we get 2 to 4 people around one young adult during some sort of transition in their life. Usually it's either like graduating high school, trying to get living situations lined up for themselves as they age out of foster care. It varies. But the goal is to get 2 to 4 stable, positive relationships in their life to walk alongside them for a year in hopes that by the end of the year's not over and that they actually have people in their life for life. I mean, that's the whole goal, because if you look at like our normal lives, like we don't have a relationship for a year and then it stops. Like the goal is to have people long-term. And a lot of these kids that we work with and young adults that we work with don't have anybody positive in their life. They have families and they have support, but it's not like healthy support sometimes. And so the goal is to get them new connections, new resources, and people just to walk alongside whatever they're going through. A lot of the young adults that we work with are considered at risk just because of the trauma they've been through, or either like abuse or neglect or whatever the situation might be. And we don't come in, and the difference in our model of mentoring is we don't come in with expectations. Like we come in and just walk alongside them with whatever their goals might be. Their goal might be to get a house. Their goal might be to get a new pair of shoes. Like it doesn't matter, because we all have goals like that. And so the mentors come in without any judgment and just say, okay, if that's your goal, what can we do to help you to get your goal reached? And so whether that's like budgeting or resume or interviews or just like life skills that a lot of people I feel like might take for granted because they were just taught, they're not. Like they just never had support to do that. And so, we get 2 to 4 people and surround them for a year.
Basically, what the hope is a lot of our kids don't have adults in their lives that aren't paid to be there. And so if they have safe trusting, loving adult relationships. At some point, that relationship does end because it's part of a program and it has a price tag attached to their name. And these adults are wonderful people who truly care about them, but it's also part of their work. And so for these young adults to see, oh, hold on a second, there's 2 to 4 people who don't have to be in my life. What's the catch, right? And so to see adults that say, we just care about who you're becoming and no one's making us be here, we're choosing to. And what you see sometimes is around that 6-month mark, they start going, oh, whoa, hold on, you know, why are you still around?
You're still here, but you haven't asked for anything yet. And you haven't wanted to, like, you haven't needed anything from me. So why are you here? Is what we get a lot of times.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's really wonderful to see just the walls come down. And it does take time, but that's why it's a year, right? And so it takes that time. And we tell our mentors, try not to set goals for the first few months because this is just relationship building. And so having that relational dynamic, we don't ask that they pay for a lot of things. We say meals, maybe high relational equity, low cost, right? And so if I buy you shoes because you need shoes, if I do something bad, you might take those shoes away from me. And so to have people in their lives saying, you know, I'm not going to buy you those shoes, but we're going to find a program who can help you with that. Or maybe, you know, what are you interested in work-wise? And let's help you get there so that you can get those shoes and keep getting more shoes you want, you know? And so teach them, you know, as we're on the shoe model, I guess, example.
No, it's a life skill that like people have always either just given them things or expected things in return. And so having mentors who won't give that to you, but either teach you like how to get them yourself so you can do this for the rest of your life. Or if you need them now, let's get you a resource to get them for you. But trying to teach them how to be like independent is the goal.
Yeah. And I think there's a difference in a boss and a parent and a mentor. And so we try to clearly define those roles for our mentors. If you're not the parent, and so it's hard, you know, because we care about them and you learn to love these kids. I mean, our mentors just fall in love with their kids. And it's hard not to go in that parent role of, why did you do that? Or, you know, where are you going? You know, and so our whole job as program managers are to walk with those teams so that we can say, hey, if they do need those resources, let that come from us, not from you. Hey, if they are having those question marks and you're like, oh, whoa, how do we answer this question? Or how do we enter into space with them and stay in that mentor role? That's our jobs to kind of say, hey, maybe these are the questions you can ask. And so our mentors are never alone. And also we check in with our mentees because we want to make sure, and that's something I think is unique to when we are doing the intake process for our mentees. The only 3 requirements for them are that they have a desire for mentors. We don't want to put people in their lives if they don't want more people in their lives. A stable place to live, so consistent. We can't mentor if we don't know where to come get you, right? Or a form of communication as well. And so that can be Facebook Messenger, that can be foster parents' phone, just a way for us to get in contact with that young adult. And then when we ask them, what kind of mentors do you want? What do you want to share in common with your mentor so that they have a voice and a choice in who's coming into their lives? Because a lot of times the service providers are assigned, right? And they're still all wonderful and great, but that young adult hasn't had a lot of autonomy in getting to choose that. And so we do our best to surround them with people who are close by to them, but also who are people that they would choose coming into their lives. I have one young man who really wants mentors who play basketball. And so I've been looking for young men who love to play basketball because that is what he needs. And that's what will help them strengthen that bond. And so it seems small, but I think the joy of the work that we get to do is the small things are the big things for these kids, and getting to see them have a childhood and be allowed to not be the adult right now, and to have people who will listen and who won't be surprised when things don't go well, because sometimes that's just life. And that's also something that we ask our mentors to do is share highs and lows with their mentee. So when they're meeting time together, it is year long, but they only spend 3 to 8 hours a month together. And then they have weekly communication. And in those those group meetings, we never do one-on-one. In those group meetings, they share their highs and lows. So their mentees see, oh, they have hard things going on too. And so I can share my hard stuff with them. This isn't an approachable conversation. And so I think people are often surprised by the life change that happens, because a year really does fly by. And sometimes we feel more like seed planters than harvest seers. You know, we tell our mentors, you're not always going to see the fruit right then, but I promise you're doing something. So it's really powerful to watch as these young adults really let their guard down and kind of get emotional about I wouldn't be where I am without you. I wouldn't be who I am without you. I now know I have people who I can call no matter what, who will love me and I can bring myself fully to. And so that's our hope, and that's the joy of what we get to do, and that's the format of how it happens for us. So,
well, and going back to like the seed planting, in life, normally what we see in like our lives is like you do something, you get a result. But with these young adults that we work with, they've had so much in their life that you might not see anything for 2, 3, 4 years down the road. We had one adult who like we worked with, and he had a team and they met. And then after the year was over, they still kind of talked, but at the back of his mind, he knew if something were to happen, like that's who I would call. 4 years later, like when something happened, those are the people that he called, because he knew like that relationship was good. It was safe. They care about me. So even though we don't talk all the time, if it comes down to it, I have people. And so that's one thing that we really try to work with our mentors on seeing, is that even though you might feel your like personal, like in your personal self that like you might have not made a difference, you're now the people in their life. And so I have another one that like 3 years later, she called them for Christmas and was like, I'm saving up for a car now. And so like, it's just like the impact that the mentors make, sometimes like it's hard to see now, but in a few years, they're still there. And it's like, oh, we did make a difference. And it's because the whole goal of the whole program is not to get any real like tangible thing met within a year. It's like just to make a relationship with this person so they know they have people they can trust now. And so that's why we say like after a year, the goal is for a life, because now they have people they can call instead of going back to the people who were never safely there for them. But now they have others to call. Things come up. And especially like Hayden said, around the 6-month mark, when they realize you're still here, and like it's uncomfortable for them because they've never felt, a lot of times they've never felt people in their life that are just here just to be here because we care about you. And so normally around that time it gets rocky, but thankful, and it's not bad rocky, but like Hayden and I talk to the mentors and the mentee every month, multiple times every month. And so anytime it does start to get rocky or something does come up in their life, they call us and we walk through it together. But there's been a few times where one of the young adults might get displaced and not have somewhere to live. And so the mentors will call us and be like, I want to go help. How can I get him a hotel room, an apartment, or whatever? And so it's coaching the mentors through like, you're still the mentor. We'll find the resources. We'll work together on this. We're going to find a safe place, you know, but we never put any of the responsibility for tangible things on them. And so for the fact that they know they can always call us is a big deal, because they know it's not on their shoulders, but we have resources available. And so we try to walk through that. We also, whatever place they live, whether it's a transitional home or whether the referral came from the school, we always stay in contact with that referral source to work with them as well. And so if something were to come up and it was a life-changing event, or it's something that needs attention, the mentors call us, we work with them, but then we also call the referral source and try to support them as much as we can to help this young adult get into a better position if they need to, or whatever the situation might be.
I can share a couple of stories, and I'll protect kind of the details of our young adults, but we had a team who graduated a couple months ago, and about, I guess it was 6 months in, it was six-month mark. She's a foster kid, and her bio mom was working to regain custody. All to say, things didn't end well, right? It didn't happen. And she had been very excited, as any kid would be. And so basically the mentors were like, we are not hearing from her. What do we do? And so that's a moment where, you know, we realize, and we say we want them to age out well, you know, as best as they can, but that's a hard transition for an 18-year-old to make. turning 18 and making life choices with support is weird for anybody. For kids who have no clue what their options are, maybe don't feel like they have very many options, and then to potentially have reunification with a parent and to have that fall through is even scarier. And I just told them, I said, consistency is key here. She's afraid and she's wounded by a very important woman figure in her life. And as we see all the time, these kids are loyal to their biological parents, as I think any of us would be, no matter what happens. And so it got really rocky for a couple of months, and they just thought, what is the deal? Do we keep going? How do we do this? And I said, even if you're getting one word responses, it's hope. And I talked to one of the mentors today, and they're still meeting, and they're having dinner this week, and they're celebrating her birthday with her in April. And so it's just in a graduation, I said, what's the biggest moment that you were proud of this young woman? And they said, you overcame so much, and we watched you have such strength in the face of adversity. And they're talking about that circumstance, and the beauty of it is they still get to support her loving mom. But they get to be the people who still aren't going anywhere and don't give up. And they had done a lot for her to make that transition, you know, and they were excited with her. And, you know, they still had questions, but they were like, if this is what you want, we want this with you. If this is what you want, we want this with you. Now, in the back of their minds, all of them are thinking, whoa, what if this doesn't work out, you know? And unfortunately, it did not. Our hope, obviously, was that it would, but it didn't. And she was okay. And she came back to her mentors and was like, I'm sorry. And another example is I have one young woman who's a single mom of two. Dad recently moved back in with her. There's a lot of factors that just kind of got in the wash, and her mentors were very diligent. I said, keep with it. If she's responding, we're still there. If she's not, let me know and I'll talk to her. They celebrated her birthday. They celebrated Christmas with her. And towards the end, we sat at the end of her graduation. And during that tough time, I just said, keep reaching out. If she doesn't want to see you in person, let her lack of presence be known. Like, hey, we miss you. We want to see you. You are important to us. So those are some kind of hard situations. And we've had things from homelessness to domestic violence situations to, you know, falling through kinship placements, and you name it. We've kind of seen the whole gambit, if you will, of those circumstances. And because that's part of what comes with the territory of working with kids in this population. And we all have hard things happen. There's just seems to be a little bit more consistent, unfortunately, sometimes. And so, those are kind of some of the stories of, you know, when it's gotten really rocky and we just stopped hearing from them. I had one go into placement in a shelter, and I lost contact with him for 3 months, and I'm calling places. I'm like, have you seen this person? You know, we're like checking in and doing our best, but their referral source know where he was, but, you know, we want to protect their, you know, the anonymity there. And so, so he's back and he's got mentors, and it's awesome. And so we keep track with our young adults.
The whole thing we do is consistency.
Yeah.
You have to stay consistent. Even if rocky times happen, don't stop. And it gets discouraging at some point, you know, sometimes, but you can't stop being consistent with them. Text them every week. Whether they text you back, they see your text message. Mm-hmm. And so they know, like, you still are here, and they always come back around. Like, it might be a month sometimes. Like, one of my girls, I mean, she went through a really hard depression season, and her mentors just checked on her every week, and she came out of it, and she was like, you're still here and you still care about me. And so she got out of it. But you can't stop because times get hard on them, because that's what they're used to. And so we try to tell our mentors, you can't stop, because they're not used to somebody not stopping if things get hard. And so consistency always brings them back around. The goal is to get safe relationships with positive people around these young adults. I mean, that's a lot of these young adults, they really want support just with whatever they're doing in life. And so our goal is to come in and give you resources, give you people to just walk alongside you through whatever transition you're going through in life, whether that is wanting to get your GED or your license or a job or like an apartment or a house, whatever it is. Like, we just want to be there for you to support you along your journey. We recruit mentors from the churches all around Oklahoma. All around Oklahoma. And so the majority is like in Oklahoma City area, obviously in Tulsa, but all the surrounding cities as well. We go and we talk to the churches. We do, Sunday mornings there. They recruit their friends to do it with them. Like we have small groups who sometimes want to do like work with a young adult together, which we love because you get to do it with your friends. And so that's fun. But yeah, churches are the biggest recruitment that we have.
No, we're not.
No, we don't.
Proselytization ministry. We just believe in the call of the church to be the hands and feet. In our training, we tell our mentors, don't ask unless they bring it up.
Yeah.
But we tell our mentees, hey, they're coming from the church. And something I love is I would say 90% of our kids don't believe in God, don't believe in a form of faith, really. And they have other things, but faith is not a natural part of their walk. But we do see kids start to walk with Jesus after their time in the program, but it's not a mandatory. And we tell them, our mentors will be praying for you. You don't have to engage with that. And they don't do it during their times together, but we ask our mentors. So our pillars are compassion, humility, patience, and prayer, because we believe in our story with Jesus, how he has interacted with us is how we should enter in and interact with these populations. Because if that is how our life change has happened, why would we not use the same format? Jesus isn't intrusive into our lives. So why would we go, do that in their lives? And so that's not the goal. Our goal is to know them and to love them and help them to be the best version of who they want to become, and stand by and be their biggest fans along the way. And so if that so happens that they start asking questions about why, you get to answer those questions. But if not, that's not something that we feel like we need to enforce onto our kids, because that's just not how God interacts with us. It's an invitation, right? Into something bigger than ourselves. And so if they want that invitation, it's there, and they know that. So I never in an interview, I'm like, just so you know, they are coming from the church. They will not make you believe what they believe. But we believe that this is our hope and our anchor. So if you want to learn more about it, you can. If not,
we've never had any young adult like be turned off but we always come to them, letting them know where the mentors come from. But we make them aware, like, we're not going to push anything that's not our goal. Like, our goal is just to be there for you. That's it. No matter where you're at, no matter what you do, we just want to be there for you. That's the population right there of the people that we serve. It's like the ones that kind of get overlooked because of situations that they've been in and things that they've done because of the situations that they've been in. Like, that's who we serve. Mm-hmm. And so we've worked with, multiple kids that have came out of juvenile detention centers, and they're wonderful. Like, because they just are like, they've made bad choices or like things have happened, but like, they need a chance too. But then again, like you said, they normally go back to the only thing that they know, which is, it's their safe spot, which is fine. But like being able to give them more people to like be in their circle of network. And if they are interested in getting a job, oh, I might know somebody who works at Macy's or whatever. Like, their mentors have connections that they've never been exposed to. Mm-hmm. That's 2 to 4 full networks of different people and circles that they're now exposed to. And so whenever we do the interview process with them too, and get to know what they like and what they're interested in, we look at all of our mentors and see if there's any similarities. We might have one young man who wants to be an engineer. Well, I have a mentor who is actually an engineer. And so I'll put him with him so he can kind of learn from him and just hear his experience. And so it's just opening a whole different circle of people that they've never even known was possible.
Yeah. And it just gives them back dignity.
Right.
Like, you're worthwhile as a human being and your dreams matter. Doesn't matter your past. We just want you to be able to move forward from this. And I see all the time those kids just don't know that they have choices when they get out. It's like, this is my one option, but that just opens up, like Alicia said, so many choices for them to say, now you've got 10 to 12 different things you could do. And it might not be your first pick as a job, but they'll get you somewhere different and we can get you where you want to go, And so it's just, it gives back that hope of dreaming and wanting to be all that they wanted to be as a kid. But now they're like, well, now what options do I have? So it just opens up the door for all of that to be available again. You know, we're restoring hope and giving back dignity to populations that wouldn't have it otherwise. And so to get to be part of that would just mean to enter into someone's story and come alongside them to help them reach their potential and believe in them along the way. And all it requires is a few hours a month of your time. And so we give you the training, we equip you with all the tools. We are there to coach you along the way if you have questions. So you're never alone in it. But ultimately, what ends up happening is substantial life change for a generation that will ultimately end cycles that will help their children see hope, that will help their children then become all that they were made to be and not end up in the same spaces that they did. So it's just restoring hope and dignity to populations who along the way have had that not exist in their lives. And so we get to give back the thing that human beings deserve.
The national average is about 50% of mentorship, like with this population, succeeds. We're at 88 to 90%. And success to us is, I mean, the team meets for a year, but then also on top of that, goals, like have they met any goals? 88 to 90% of our kids have been successful in this program.
Mm-hmm. And I'll add to that of the 10 to 12% that would quote unquote not be a full year. Most of those had to close because either mentors moved because of jobs during COVID, or mentees got transitioned to a new foster home, either out of the city or to a kinship placement somewhere. So most of those are not because the team failed, just because it just didn't work out. A lot of those are due to, things that you can't control. And what we see a lot of the time is those mentees still reach out to those individuals. And our favorite saying is any degree of change is good change. So even if they just had those adults in their lives for 3 to 6 months, they still know. I mean, Alicia, wasn't it earlier in the year when the pandemic hit that you had a young man like call the offices looking to see if he could get reconnected to mentors? He had 3 months in a team, changed numbers, lost all their contacts, and then called our offices, found us online and said, hey, I want my people back, So those are, so the statistics, the 10 to 12% that you see not graduating and still meeting are just due to unforeseen circumstances for the most part. I would say probably 7 or 8% of those are just moves or things like that. So
with the small percentage, like the 10 to 12 that end up closing, they circle back. And one of my, like whatever you said, I mean, we have like 3 to 4% out of that 12 who closed just because the mentee was like fell off the radar, they were done. One of my girls, we closed her team because she moved around too much and we couldn't get a hold of her. And then a crisis came up and she called her team, even though she knew it closed. And we always, something about our closing process is when we do close a team, we invite them to the closure meeting. Like, it's not that they're like, we just cut them out. We have a dinner together, whether it's a graduation dinner at the year mark, or if we close, we still have a dinner. And if we close, we still invite that mentee because they're still valuable and they have, I mean, they're worth everything. And so we invite them to the closure. And even if they don't come, we'll text them and the mentors will text them and be like, hey, we missed you at dinner tonight. We're still here. Even though we closed, like we're still here. And then one of my girls, we closed her and it was about 6 months later and a crisis came up and her mentors called me and it was like, you'll never guess who called me because they know their mentors are still there. And so she's considered a closed team, but they're still there. And so to me, that's success because they know they have people now, even though their team might have not graduated, they still have people. And that's the whole goal in this. Well, this age group in general is tough, but then working with the young adults who come from hard places adds an extra layer of hard to the whole situation. But I mean, for me, the biggest thing is patience, because you have to be patient. I mean, like growing up, in like what you would consider like a normal household where you just like learn things as you're supposed to learn them according to like what culture tells you. And then now as an adult, you're trying to work with these young people who have never learned what the society tells them they should have learned at certain ages. Patience is key. It takes a long time for them to learn things, whether that's a year or 2 or 3. But patience is the biggest thing in my book of like, we're not in it for us. You're not going to feel good. You know, it might be a year and you might think you haven't done much, but that's not the goal. The goal is to be patient with this person through their life, and eventually you'll see the fruit of it. But it might not be today. It might not be a year, but it's there. And so that's my biggest advice, is just patience.
What I would say is let your shock factor go down with what they say. Because sometimes in my head I'm going, whoa. And for them, it's like, oh yeah, this just happened. And so the least shocked I can be by what's happening, and the most I can just say, oh, tell me about that, the more they're willing to trust me.
That's true.
Because yeah, your shock factor, like when they tell you something that you're like, you know, what just happened? Most of the time, they're used to people being shocked. And the reaction, I think sometimes saying, oh, yeah, that's tough. And just relating with them in that, and not seeking to, you know, I don't understand why that's tough for them because I've never faced that. But helping them see, you know, oh, whoa, that would be really tough. Not like, oh my gosh, panic, because inside their cortisol is like flooded, and they have no shock, they have no panic, and if they do, it's heightened, and then it's not. And so for us to go, you know what, that would hurt my feelings if that happened to me. How did that make you feel? And just let them have emotion towards it, and not be surprised when they do things that they're trying to be like, how are they going to react, you know? Because sometimes they'll throw things out there to be like, I'm going to test the waters, you know, like what I'm going to say. And so when they throw something out there that usually would deter adults in their life from being like, well, I can't help you anymore, being like, that was an interesting choice. What made you get there, you know? But, you know, and just letting them see, okay, you can make choices I do not agree with, but hey, that's the choice you made. What are we going to do next? What do you want to do with that? You know, and when things get hard, letting it be hard for them, because I think they're used to people trying to fix it. Okay, well, we need to bypass this problem to figure out how we're going to get it solved, and letting them linger in the moment of, man, that would have hurt my feelings. That must have been really tough. And it seems like we're exacerbating the issue, right? Like we're like, oh, we're making this 10 times more than it is. But for them, they've suffered so much to have someone stop and go, wait, hold on a second. I know that you said that it wasn't a big deal, and it's okay if it wasn't, but that hurt your feelings. We can talk about it. Or if that was really shocking or scary for you, we can go there. Because a lot of times it's like, okay, yeah, we're diagnosing, we're figuring out what's going on, because that's what we have to do, right, to get them the best treatment. But for a mentor to just say, oh, wait, let's circle back, you know, to that. You know, you said this, but did that one sting a little? Or, you know, just whatever they need to feel kind of heard and slow down in their, what would you say, the traumatic moments that seem ordinary to them that shouldn't, to slow them down a little bit in the hurry of the things that kind of change and evolve in their lives constantly. So
yes. Yeah, a lot of times they're not used to being able to just sit and process, because people want to hear things from them. And then, like Hayden said, they might, oh, let's do this and this and this and this to fix it. Well, no, they just need to like talk to somebody, like just without anything involved, no judgment, like what's going on? How did that make you feel? You know, like that stinks, you know? Mm-hmm. And so having somebody to just sit there and not the shock factor happen, they're not used to that. And so that is a big deal.
One of our girls, she'll just throw things at me, and I can see it in her eyes, like, what are you going to say? You know, are you going to still love me? Am I still going to be worth your time when I am honest about this? And for, you know, the first time I was like, she said something in my eyes kind of, you know, and I'm like, oh, that was horrible, Hayden, like, be better than that. And then the next time she said it, I was just like, oh, okay, well, like, how did you react to that? What'd you do? And then she, you know, she opened up more. And the last time it happened, she was like, and I'm done. You know, like I was shocked, she was out. And so that was kind of how it worked. And I was like, oh, I can't be surprised, but I can share with her, and I can sympathize with her in the emotion that she's feeling here. Because my shock factor only makes her shut down, but my empathy allows her room to be known deeper. And so that is kind of what I've learned in a mentoring, especially because I worked with little kids before. And so everything's, you know, way more a big deal to them. But so for these older young adults, to have someone go be with them in it and not afraid of it or shocked by it, I think is everything for that individual.